Daniel Tarullo out at the Federal Reserve. Come on in, please. Chair of the House Financial Services Committee, Republican from Texas, Congressman Jeb Hensarling. Congressman, when this gentleman leaves in April, we are told that that frees up the Federal Reserve, that they no longer have the chief banking regulator in place, and that the banks will be freed from the yoke of Daniel Tarullo. You're on the Financial Services Committee. You chair it. What do you make of that?
Well, number one, the former president, President Obama, never appointed formally anybody to this position. So you had Dan Tarullo perhaps unlawfully filling the position. But what we've had here is essentially the Federal Reserve, figuratively, if not literally, having a board seat in America's banks. So unelected bureaucrats can essentially micromanage our banks. They can allocate capital along political reasons. This is not a good thing. We need more capital in our banks to prevent losses. But ultimately, we've had 8 years of Dan Tarullo. We've had 8 years of essentially zero interest rate policies, and there's zero evidence that it has worked. So I'm looking forward to having President Trump hopefully fill 3 new seats on the Board of Governors and get us back to a more rational kind of rules-based monetary policy and ensure ultimately that we lay the foundation for the trade-off between capital and Washington micromanagement. We need more capital. We need less Washington micromanagement and the regulatory burdens to it.
I think we could all get behind that one, Congressman. Now, Janet Yellen, Fed Chair, currently testifying on Capitol Hill. She'll testify again tomorrow, and you will have an opportunity to ask her questions. So far today, she's, as we say, teed up some rate increases. She says she will complete her term as chair of the Federal Reserve, but you get to ask questions tomorrow. What question in particular will you ask her?
Well, Stuart, what I'm interested in is when are we going to have a more strategy-based monetary policy, one that is less improvisational? All the economic history I've seen in our country is that when we have a more rules-based, predictable monetary policy, that's associated with more positive economic growth. People can plan their economic futures. We can't do that at the moment. The second thing I want to ask, Stuart, is about this bloated balance sheet. Unfortunately, we have a Federal Reserve that's no longer just engaged in monetary policy. They're engaged in credit allocation by buying up all these mortgage-backed securities. They're selectively intervening in credit markets, which means that politics is intervening in supposedly the independent Federal Reserve's maneuvering, and so they need to get out of that business. So the next question is, what is the plan to reduce the balance sheet, and what is the plan to get out of the credit allocation business, which is not part of monetary policy?
Congressman Jeb Hensarling will be watching tomorrow when you ask these questions. Thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate it, sir. Thank you very much indeed. Now, as we talk